Joining us now, though, from Breitbart News, this is their senior technology correspondent, Allum Bokhari, and Allum has bailed me out several times. I think at least 3 times he's had to bail me out from getting banned on Twitter or Facebook or something else we did when we were put in the dog house. He made one phone call and got it done. So the guy's got what they say a lot of juice. And he's with us now. Allum Bokhari, great to have you with us, Allum.
Great to be on, John. Thanks for inviting me. So this latest story is that we've been looking at data from Google and the way they've suppressed us in search since 2017, conveniently right after Donald Trump was inaugurated, is insane. There's just one number your listeners should I want to stick in your listeners' heads: 99.7%. That is the amount of visibility that Breitbart links have lost in Google search since 2017. 99.7%. That's not an exaggeration. They've almost completely eliminated our visibility from Google search. And more recently, in their recent update, traffic to Breitbart from searches for Joe Biden. Previously, they were going up and down quite organically. They went to 0. They completely flatlined. And Google wants us all to believe this is just an accident. This is happening organically. This isn't deliberate. Give me a break. You don't shut off traffic from searches for Joe Biden, the Democratic presidential candidate, to the leading conservative news website on the web, and then claim that's just an accident.
So this is a systematic effort, a systematic strategy. Let's call it a strategy, right? So Google executives have a strategy, and that is to crush Breitbart, get them out of their search engine. So if people are looking for certain things, it doesn't come up. You guys don't come up. You don't feed in. And in one of the reports I saw the other day, in one day, your views went from link to Google from 30,000 to 1. In like one day, like or 3 days, from May 1st to May 5th. How did that happen? Just walk us through what Google does in order to suppress your information.
The key tell is that this always happens after major updates by Google. These updates are unknown. They're announced normally. Their algorithm updates to its algorithm, which is the technology they use to determine what shows up in search results, what shows up and crucially the first page of search results. Most people don't go beyond. And as I said, after this latest update in May, search traffic from search results for Biden and Joe Biden went to 0. And that's any SEO expert will tell you that that doesn't happen organically. Normally, what you see is traffic goes up and down as people are interested in a topic, then it becomes less interested, then it goes up, then it goes down again. It doesn't suddenly go to 0 or to 1, as you said, and that's how you know someone flipped a switch. It's not something that's happening organically.
How do you fight this? Because I want our audience to understand this hurts your company in 2 ways, right? Number one, you do a piece and you want the piece to be widely read, right? So you want people to understand it or to have access to it, whether you influence somebody or not, but you want people to get information, right? So it suppresses the information that you're putting out. That's number one. But the second thing it does, it has a dramatic negative impact on your advertising revenue that flows into the company, because the way it's set up now with clicks is that programmable advertising, companies are paid by the number of ads that serve up. So if I'm getting 30,000 or 100,000 people click into my article, more ads serve up, I get higher revenue. If nobody clicks on it, I don't get any revenue. So you guys are getting screwed on 2 ends. What is the real goal here, to put you guys under?
I believe so. In fact, we've released internal messages from Google showing there was an enormous campaign back in 2017 from Google employees who wanted to just strip Breitbart of all of its ad revenue. They were even marketing directors telling their clients, advertisers, to go to the website of the Sleeping Giants, which is a far-left organization that smears conservative news websites. So they were actively trying to get rid of our revenue. We also know that, the far-left bias at Google goes right to the top because we saw that leaked footage that we obtained of Google executives in 2018 when they reacted to the Trump election just a few days after the November 2016 election. And, they're in complete panic mode. They were saying things like, we want to make the populist movement a blip in history. Talking about using their technology to educate so-called low-information voters. So, they were in a panic. They were wondering what to do, how to use the resources of the company to stop this from happening again. And ever since then, these tech companies, as we know, have been instituting these fake news departments, these fact-checking organizations that always target the right, or seem to never target the left. So this has been the agenda of Silicon Valley for the past 4 years: suppress conservative media, make them unprofitable, make them harder to find.
We're with Breitbart News senior technology correspondent Allum Bokhari, doing this study in Google, how you've been suppressed by them. What about the other social media giants out there? How have you been treated by Twitter, Facebook? Let's go through some of the others, Allum.
Well, the big story from Facebook this week concerning Breitbart is they shut down a viral video we had. It was just a live press coverage of some frontline doctors talking about COVID-19 and misinformation around that. We weren't, offering any commentary on what these doctors were saying. We were just covering it. It was a news event that people were interested in, and we know lots of people were interested in because that live stream became the top performing post on Facebook on the day we posted it. It got over 17 million views. At one point, we had over 185,000 people watching at the same time, which was a record. And what happened was mainstream journalists started complaining. New York Times reporters started complaining to Facebook, and Facebook pulled it down.
What were they complaining about? Let's get to this, because this was a few days ago, right? This was the one that was put on. The Tea Party organization, right? Jenny Beth Martin was involved in this, I believe. Is this the one where they had a bunch of doctors get together, and they were basically, you guys were covering news, and they had a kind of a press conference, I guess, if you will, and lots of doctors there just giving a different opinion. These were medical professionals, right? So this was a story of news, right? You were reporting what these people were saying. And so why was the New York Times complaining about covering an event with doctors?
Yeah, it's really quite insane. I mean, these doctors were, I suppose, going against the mainstream media's opinion. They were, saying positive things about hydroxychloroquine, and we know the media's been in a panic about that ever since Donald Trump started touting it. It's not a miracle cure, but it's not a deadly poison either. And the media's just been trying to shut down all positive discussion about it because, it's part of their anti-Trump agenda, I guess. And that was one of the things they were complaining about. And, Silicon Valley just follows the direction of these journalists these days. Facebook shut it down, then YouTube shut it down, then Twitter shut it down. All three big Silicon Valley companies in succession. Which just reminds you, there's no competition between these companies. They all behave in exactly the same way. You can't just go to another platform when one of the other platforms censors you, because that next platform will censor you as well. They all behave as one ideological unit. So they essentially completely erased that video from the internet, even though it was mega viral. The public were extremely interested in it.
So the public was interested in a press conference by a group of doctors who were disputing the evidence of common knowledge, if you will, or those that have a different view. And you guys were just covering it as a newsworthy event, and you got shut down, and the videos got shut down, and Facebook shut it down, and YouTube shut it down, and everybody shut it down. So what is it now? And it was because the New York Times complained about it. So what is the New York Times? Are 8 reporters now in the Times woke desk now controlling what we cover or what we see?
Well, actually, we've seen this exact same thing happen before when we revealed, I think, in 2018 that YouTube changed search results for abortion because a Slate reporter went to them and complained that there were too many pro-life videos in the top 10 results. So YouTube went in and manually changed those search results, added abortion to a file that's literally called YouTube Controversial Query Blacklist. They call it a blacklist. And what that did was it elevated videos from the mainstream media, from the left-wing media, and kicked all of those pro-life videos out of the top 10. It was, included videos from Ben Shapiro, from other conservatives, offering pro-life opinions. They did the same thing, search results for the Federal Reserve, after MSNBC's Chris Hayes complained about too many, libertarian videos criticizing the Federal Reserve appearing in those search results. So they absolutely do what left-wing and mainstream journalists tell them. Journalists says jump, and Google and Facebook and all these companies ask how high.
When search results first started, you got up on search results in two ways. You either purchased it, which is perfectly legitimate. It's a free country. And so you could buy a better listing, or it would be determined on the number of clicks that you had. So if you had a story that had millions and millions of viewers, that would elevate itself automatically, paid or not, to the top of the list. But now what you're saying is, for those stories that have those that get to the top, then Google goes in and systematically cuts them out, blacklists them, and pushes them down to the bottom, or eliminates them altogether, based on
absolutely
purely ideology, not based on paid. And so even if you wanted to pay for it, you probably, what are you saying, you couldn't do that either?
Well, oftentimes we've, increasing recently, I think, we've seen Facebook and these other companies and YouTube just reject ads because they don't like them for some reason. I think it was actually 60 Minutes that looked into YouTube and found that banned over 300 of President Trump's campaign ads, which is an insane number. So yes, it's becoming difficult even to do paid advertisements on these platforms. But also, as you said, it's not about what's relevant and popular anymore either, because ever since the 2016 election, Silicon Valley has turned against the idea of letting the users decide what's going to be trending or what's going to be appearing at the top of people's news feeds. They don't trust ordinary people anymore because ordinary people gave them President Trump. So now they're imposing control from the top down. They're determining what we see, what appears at the top of our feeds. So we're moving back towards a system where the information we see is controlled by a handful of corporate elites, which is exactly what the internet was supposed to stop from happening. Instead, we've gone completely back the other way to a tightly controlled information ecosystem run by a few unaccountable oligarchs.
Isn't that the grand irony, Allum? That what the internet was supposed to do, it's now doing the exact opposite. I mean, isn't that like the grand irony of all time? I mean, it was supposed to be the information highway of freedom, and it's now turned into just another version of the New York Times.
Absolutely. And the problem is politicians gave these companies too much power. They gave them legal privileges in the 1990s that no other type of company enjoys. Essentially renders them immune from lawsuits for taking down content they consider to be objectionable. Now, that law says they have to do it in good faith, and Trump's executive order is actually alleging they don't do it in good faith, so that there might be some changes happening there. But, anyone who tells you this is just a free market and we have to leave these companies alone is lying to you, because everyone knows these companies owe their position to that privilege they got in the 1990s from Congress. It's really crazy to me, given how much businesses and individuals and politicians now depend on these tech platforms, that there's no sense of due process when your account gets kicked off for arbitrary reasons. No other industry gets those kind of legal privileges, and it definitely has to stop. Politicians and the executive has to do something if we want our digital public square back. As you said, it is very, very ironic, because the internet was supposed to be a place of free speech and free information where anyone could be heard. Now it's more tightly controlled and censored than perhaps any other medium.
It's not only the grand irony, it's the polar opposite of what it was supposed to be and designed to do. It's incredible. We're with Allum Bokhari. I'm John Fredericks, your Godzilla of the Truth in America. And Allum is the senior technology correspondent with Breitbart News. So how does Breitbart fight back? Because you're losing again. Content not getting seen by people who should have the ability to see it, but you're also losing advertising revenue on the other end. How do you fight back?
Well, what I tell people is don't rely on Google, don't rely on Facebook to give you the news you're interested in. Go back to, the old school method, put Breitbart in your bookmarks folder, type it into your web browser,
right.
Sign up for email alerts. This is how you're going to get around the censorship of these big tech companies.
It's the only way you're going to do it. You are so right. And I was saying earlier, Allum, that my company has been a slow burn. We've built ours from the bottom up. And I made the decision 5 or 6 years ago on all of our digital platforms not to rely on programmable advertising based on click and ad serve ups, because I said eventually if your company's dependent on that, if our company's dependent on that, it's easy. I mean, it's easy to do. You get a certain number, you get signed up, you apply for it, the ads come in, you get a revenue comes in. But I said, problem we're going to have with that is if you ever get censored, you're out of business because you have no other model. And so we went the old-fashioned way, call up advertisers, and they buy ads. Very different because you're not dependent on that. But those companies that are dependent on that revenue, big tech has figured out this is how to put them under. Just censor them, and then their revenue goes down. Let me ask you one other thing. We're almost out of time. 3 times I've been banned from Twitter, I believe. 3 times I called you up and said I'm going to do a press conference or whatever, and within hours, you got me back up. How did you do that?
Well, it does sometimes happen, because these Silicon Valley companies have built such elaborate automated systems of censorship. The problem is these automated systems have been designed by leftists. So whenever they make a mistake, it's normally, suspending a conservative by accident. And normally, oftentimes it isn't an accident and they won't reinstate your account. But sometimes these companies do, when you call them up or call up their press department, realize that they've made a mistake and reinstate you. But it's important to note that all of these so-called mistakes are happening to conservatives for a reason. It's because the systems that they designed were made by these far-left social justice warriors in Silicon Valley.
All right, so basically the only way around this is 2 things. The laws that are protecting them from lawsuits and suppressing content, that has to be changed. That's a legislative action. And the other thing is for companies like yourself is to bookmark you, sign up for your news alerts, get there the old-fashioned way. Don't do a search, but get there to Breitbart. Go to breitbartnews.com. Download their app like I do. I just pop on the app when I get up in the morning. Everything comes in. I read what I want. Allum, Bokhari, thanks for being with us, man, and keep fighting.
Thanks, John. Great to be on.